shelter. And that is an indicator that is lagging behind many of the private sector data points out there, such as Zillow, CoStar. That's just to name a few, and that's what economists have been saying. But the way one economist put it is that the shelter numbers that we got last week really reflect what happened last summer in 2021.
The headline says inflation is cooling down. Your rent check says something else. One statistic tells you the worst is over. Another statistic, the one on your lease agreement, feels like it's still going up. You're not wrong to notice the discrepancy. It's actually built into the way America calculates housing inflation. Tonight, we're going to unpack something called the CPI shelter metric. We will differentiate market rent from the rent that's actually measured. We will break down the idea of owner's equivalent rent, and we'll explain why even a house you own outright, without a mortgage, factors into the inflation calculations. By the end of this, you'll understand why price changes from previous months take so long to show up in official data. You'll also be better equipped to approach your next lease negotiation with a clearer understanding than any news headline can provide. This explanation will follow the same structure we use for all complex topics in housing economics. We will begin with the basic economic principles at work. We will then bring in the human side of things, looking at how people actually move and what they pay. Finally, we will end with the housing-related actions you can take. The overall goal is simple: to make sense of the numbers, so you can make decisions that are right for you.
So the reason,
Big lag.
yes, so the reason why there is this lag is because CPI captures rents for all tenants. So landlords can't raise rents to their existing tenants at the same level that they're raising rents to new tenants. They would have to wait for that existing tenant to renew the lease in order for that bump to occur.
Shelter is the single biggest component of the Consumer Price Index, CPI. For most of us, it's our largest monthly expense. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, tracks prices across many different categories each month, then combines them using a system of weights. Shelter has a high weighting because Americans spend such a large portion of their budgets on housing. Within the shelter category, there are two main subcategories: rent of primary residence, which tracks what current renters are paying. Then there's owner's equivalent rent, which estimates what owner-occupied housing would rent for if it were actually rented. Rent of primary residence seems straightforward. Surveyors ask a large group of renters what they're currently paying for the same place they were paying for before. This method focuses on how rent changes for existing tenants. It does not focus on asking rents for brand new leases or for vacant properties. It's measuring the actual experience of the same households over time. Owner's equivalent rent might sound a little strange at first. If you own your home, why would the index pretend that you're paying rent to yourself? Here's why. The Consumer Price Index aims to measure the cost of living, not the value of assets. A house is both a place to live and an investment. The index is interested in the shelter that a house provides, not its potential resale price. So, homeowners are asked to estimate how much their home would rent for if it were unfurnished and didn't include utilities. That estimate is then tracked over time, just like rent. It's not a perfect system, but it keeps the index focused on consumption rather than wealth. As a result of these choices, CPI shelter moves like a giant ship. It turns very slowly. It doesn't react to the latest asking rents listed online. Instead, it captures the real-world experiences of millions of existing tenants and the estimated experience of millions of homeowners. So, when market rents jump up quickly, you'll see that reflected in private indexes first. Many months later, you'll see it reflected in CPI shelter. When market rents start to cool down, you'll see that cooling reflected in those private indexes first, and only later in CPI shelter. If CPI shelter moves so slowly, why does your own rent sometimes jump up so quickly? That's because your experience is a snapshot of one particular lease. in one specific building, at one specific time. The index, on the other hand, is an average of many leases spread out over time. Here are the main reasons why your personal experience might differ from the overall index. New lease versus renewal. If you just moved, you were dealing with the market for vacant units. Landlords try to advertise the highest price they think they can get. They might use concessions to adjust the effective price. They act quickly when supply is tight, and they offer deals when supply loosens up. Renewals are different. Many landlords raise renewal rates more gradually to keep reliable tenants. The CPI sample includes many renewals. So, if you recently signed a new lease in a hot market, your rent increase might look much bigger than the average. Stock versus flow. CPI tracks the stock of existing rental contracts. Private listing indexes track the flow of newly advertised units. The flow of new listings reacts first. The stock of existing leases takes months to catch up. This is the primary reason why your rent can feel out of sync with the reports. Amenities, fees, and utilities. Your total housing cost isn't just the base rent. Pet fees, parking fees, amenity fees, trash valet fees, utility bundles, and insurance all factor in. Listing services often show the base rent and might mention a free month or a waived fee. CPI tries to capture what continuing tenants actually pay for the unit, but it won't perfectly match every single line item on your bill. So, your experience can feel better or worse, depending on how your building prices add-ons. Quality changes. The place you just moved into might be newly renovated compared to the place you left, or it could be older with fewer updates. CPI tries to keep quality constant for the same unit over time, but your personal move might involve big quality changes that affect the price per square foot in ways that the index won't consider as inflation. Geographic mix. If you move from a cheaper area to a more expensive one, your costs will jump. The index is averaging many people who stayed put. They didn't make the same move you did. Your personal experience won't match the national average. Timing. If you signed your lease at the peak of a local cycle, maybe in the middle of summer, you locked in a rate that will take a year to recheck. The index is blending leases that started in every month of the year. Averages will smooth out your high water mark. Simply put, CPI shelter is like a rearview mirror, designed to measure the center of the distribution of continuing tenants. Your rent is a single data point in the road ahead. Owner's equivalent rent is often the most misunderstood part of the CPI. The idea is to put a value on the shelter provided by owner-occupied homes. Imagine two neighbors. One rents a house for $2,000 a month. The other owns an identical house next door, mortgage-free. Both neighbors are getting the same benefit of shelter. If CPI counted only the rent, it would underestimate the cost of shelter for the homeowner, even though the benefit is the same. By estimating a rent value for the homeowner, the index treats both neighbors in a similar way. There are two main implications of this. First, shelter carries a large weight in the CPI, partly because of owner's equivalent rent. Second, the path of CPI shelter isn't the same as mortgage payments or home prices. If mortgage rates jump sharply, CPI shelter doesn't jump because mortgage rates are a cost of financing an asset, not the price of the shelter itself. If home prices surge, CPI shelter might move only gradually because it's estimating the rental value of the home, not its sale price. This is why years with big home price booms can show more modest increases in measured shelter inflation, and why your friend who just bought a home at a higher rate feels a bigger monthly financial strain than the index suggests. See the lag in action, it helps to walk through a simple timeline. Imagine a city where demand is rising quickly. New job announcements bring in new residents. The supply of new apartments is limited this year. Asking rents for vacant units rise within weeks. Online listing indexes reflect this jump because they track the flow of new ads. Now, imagine months go by. landlords start renewing existing tenants at higher rates, but often less than the increase for new leases. The CPI shelter panel surveys those continuing tenants on a rotating schedule. The higher renewal rates start to show up gradually. Now, imagine a year later. Developers finish a wave of new projects. Vacancies rise. Landlords offer concessions. Asking rents level off or even fall. Private indexes react first. CPI shelter still reflects many leases that were signed during the tight period. The measured inflation stays high even as the market cools in real time. Many months later, the official shelter index finally shows clear disinflation. This dance between stock and flow is normal. It's part of the design. It's also why news headlines can talk about sticky shelter inflation, while renters searching today are being offered 2 weeks free to move in. You might wonder why the private measures of rent sometimes don't agree with each other either. The answer is that they use different methods and have different coverage. Some sources focus on large, professionally managed buildings in major metropolitan areas. Others include single-family rentals and smaller properties. The sample matters. Vintage is also a factor. If an index leans heavily toward new buildings, it will fluctuate more when new supply enters the market, because those buildings price aggressively. To attract tenants, asking rent versus achieved rent is another difference. Listings show the asking rent. Leases reflect the achieved rent, which can be lower after concessions. Some measures adjust for this, others don't. Unit mix and size also play a role. If smaller units come onto the market 1 year and larger units the next, the average advertised rent can change even if the price per square foot stays the same. Some indexes use sophisticated statistical methods to account for this mix, while others use medians that still fluctuate with composition. Geography matters too. Suburban and urban cores don't have the same characteristics. Shifting the weight between them changes the average. None of these differences mean that one source is wrong. They simply mean that each source is answering a slightly different question. When you see a gap between a private index and CPI, remember that you're comparing the flow for a subset of the market with the stock for the entire market. Because shelter makes up such a large portion of the CPI, the path of the overall inflation rate often depends on this one category. When shelter is hot, the headline inflation figure resists falling. When shelter cools, the headline finally drops. This matters for policymakers. Interest rate decisions respond to inflation data with a delay. If CPI shelter is still catching up to last year's trends, the measured inflation can look higher than current market conditions. That can delay a policy shift, even as new leases are already becoming more affordable. The opposite can happen early in a surge when market rents are rising quickly. But CPI shelter is still relatively calm. The lag can make communication difficult. It can also make your personal experience feel overlooked. Statistics don't move on their own. People move them. 3 social trends from the past 15 years explain a lot of what you're seeing. The pandemic relocation. Remote work allowed millions of people to choose different cities and different neighborhoods. Sun Belt cities built more housing, but they also grew faster. Coastal cities cooled down, then stabilized. This reshuffling caused a temporary spike in asking rents in high-growth regions, followed by a softening as new supply came online. CPI shelter reflected this entire process, but with a delay. Household formation. In the early years of the pandemic, young adults moved back home or doubled up. As the economy reopened, they formed new households. That created a surge in new leases and pushed asking rents up quickly. As affordability became an issue, household formation slowed down. Vacancy rates rose in some regions. Concessions returned. Again, CPI shelter followed with a lag. Supply waves. Apartments take time to build. Permits issued today translate to completed units in a year or two. Several cities saw a large number of new units delivered in 2023 and 2024. That new supply created competition for tenants and reduced rent growth. Even when mortgage rates were high, CPI shelter began to reflect the softer renewal environment as leases were renewed. You can't control the index, but you can control your choices. Here's a practical guide to align your rent with the reality you're facing. Set your guardrail. If your household income is $60,000 a year, aim to keep your rent near $1,500 a month or less. If you have debt, target 25 to 28% of your income instead of 30%. That difference becomes your buffer. Track the market that applies to you. If you plan to renew, ask your property manager for the current renewal schedule for your unit type. If you plan to move, search for 5 to 7 comparable listings within a half-mile radius that match your desired size, year built, and amenities. Record the asking rent and any concessions. Negotiate the effective number, not just the sticker price. A free month on a 12-month lease cuts the effective rent by about 8%. A waived parking fee or a reduced administrative fee also changes your monthly cost. Ask for the concessions at once. A small reduction in rent plus a small concession is often approved more easily than a single large discount. Time your lease. Late fall and winter are typically slower than peak summer in many cities. Mid-month starts can also help. If you can handle an extra 2 weeks between leases to catch a better move-in window, you might save more than those days cost. Price the full cost. Add base rent, utilities, parking, internet, required renter's insurance, and any mandatory amenity fees. Compare that total to your guardrail. Make your decision based on the total. A cheap base rent with high utilities isn't cheap. Check quality and energy efficiency. Drafty windows and tired HVAC systems are rent increases in disguise. Ask for the last 12 months of utility averages from similar units. If the building can't provide them, ask current tenants on your floor. A lower electric bill can be the deciding factor between 2 similar units. Lock in flexibility if needed. If your budget is tight, don't stretch yourself with a long-term lease at a painful price. A shorter commitment with a better effective rent can keep you safe while you build savings and wait for more supply. When renters feel out of touch with the reports, the trust gap widens. Here are concrete steps that can reduce that gap. Permit the missing middle. Small multifamily buildings and accessory dwelling units absorb demand without overwhelming. Infrastructure. They also create natural price points below luxury towers. Stage delivery. When large pipelines hit the market all at once, markets become unstable. Phased delivery, aligned with transit and services, keeps neighborhoods stable and avoids empty buildings next to overcrowded ones. Tie incentives to outcomes. If a project receives public support, link it to measurable affordability outcomes, such as a share of units at defined rent caps or a promise to keep renewal increases within a certain range for reliable tenants. Invest in energy efficiency. Weatherization reduces the true cost of shelter. Grants or low-cost loans for insulation, window replacements, and efficient HVAC systems improve affordability without a single dollar of rent subsidy. Report renewal trends. Quarterly public dashboards on renewal increases by neighborhood build transparency and trust. People are more likely to accept numbers they can see and verify. Whenever you encounter a headline discussing shelter inflation, there are three crucial questions you absolutely need to be asking yourself. To begin, what specific period of time is the headline referencing? Next, which precise measurement are they employing? Are they utilizing the CPI shelter figure, which pertains to tenants who are renewing their existing leases? Are they instead making use of the owner's equivalent rent, a metric that estimates the hypothetical rental value of homes that are currently occupied by their owners? Or perhaps they're relying on a private asking rent index, which diligently tracks the prices associated with newly offered leases. And finally, where does your particular local housing market currently stand within its overall supply cycle? Is it steadily becoming more and more competitive? Is it currently stabilizing? Or is it instead becoming progressively less competitive? The answers you come up with for each of these critical questions will be instrumental in helping you determine whether the findings presented in the report should logically align with the experiences you're having in the present moment, or whether they are more likely to be reflective of the conditions that prevailed several months prior. If there's only one key takeaway you internalize from all of this, make sure it's this: the official shelter index essentially tells the story of leases that have already been officially signed and finalized. Your lease agreement, on the other hand, paints a vivid picture of the prevailing market conditions as they exist right now. The numerical value you observe on your lease agreement is, without a shadow of a doubt, completely accurate and reflective of your specific situation. And the numerical value that is presented within the aforementioned report is also entirely accurate. In its own context, both are, in fact, looking at the very same city and housing market, but they are doing so from entirely disparate and fundamentally different vantage points. One perspective casts its gaze back over the preceding year, carefully taking into account average figures derived from a diverse range of properties across the entire market. The other perspective zooms in with laser-like precision on your own unique and individual circumstances, placing a sharp focus on the here and now, right outside the front door of your own residence. Gaining a solid understanding of this fundamental difference is incredibly and immeasurably valuable. It has the potential to effortlessly transform initial feelings of confusion and uncertainty into a crystal-clear comprehension of the timing involved. It can effectively convert frustration and exasperation into a well-defined and actionable plan. Know precisely what you are realistically willing to accept in terms of price and conditions. Carefully figure out the full and all-encompassing total cost, factoring in all potential expenses. Vigilantly keep a close watch on all of the available options and alternatives that are on the table. Proactively ask about the real and truly effective price, taking into account any potential concessions or incentives.